Here's something to consider next time you fill up at the pump. Those low prices you've been enjoying could be hurting ISIS's cash flow. Keep in mind, we're talking about the group dubbed the world's richest terrorist organization. That money has to come from somewhere. And while extortion, looting, and funding from wealthy donors in the Gulf states accounts for much of the group's revenue, one big moneymaker is oil. Since their takeover of Mosul this summer, ISIS militants have captured major oil fields in Iraq and Syria. By some estimates, the group was making as much as $2 million per day selling this stolen oil at a cheap rate to middlemen, mostly in Turkey. It's a profitable business. In August, the Brookings Institution estimated ISIS was selling crude oil that was at the time worth $100 a barrel at much lower prices, somewhere between $25 and $60. But that was before the U.S. started pounding the ISIS-controlled oil fields with airstrikes and global market prices began to fall. Now, cheap oil elsewhere makes ISIS's discounted oil a lot less appealing, and the group, energy analysts say, must slash its own prices even further to compete. Now, the fact that oil prices are even dropping is pretty interesting when you consider during previous times of crisis in the Middle East, gas prices have skyrocketed. They haven't this time around, and a columnist at MarketWatch calls it ISIS's first strategic defeat. And while you'd think ISIS would have a pretty big impact on oil prices, given that it set up its caliphate in Iraq, otherwise known as OPEC's second largest oil producer, the group's effect has been limited, mostly because, as CNN explains, the country's more valuable refineries in southern Iraq are still out of the group's reach. As for what is affecting oil prices, excess supply and not enough demand have a lot to do with it. As a result, the average price at the pump is at $2.81 per gallon in the U.S., after nearly 4 years of at least a $3 average. For Newsy, I'm Elizabeth Hagedorn, multiple sources, a broader view.